in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Newsgaon से संवाद सरोकार न्यूज, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today the current topic is COVID returns impact on Indian economy. Before I will go on the main topic, I would like to inform you that today the country is celebrating Buddha Purnima. Buddha Purnima is the celebration of the birth of Gautam Buddha, and this year it is being observed on May 26th. His birth anniversary is also known as Buddha Purnima or Vaisakhi Buddha Purnima or Vaisak. As per the Hindu calendar, Buddha Jayanti falls on a full moon day in the month of Vaisak, which usually falls in April or May. Buddha Jayanti 2021 will mark the Lord Buddha's 2583rd birth anniversary. However, it is actually based on the Asian lunisolar calendar, which is why the dates change every year. Lord Buddha was born as Prince Siddharth Gautama on the Purnima Tithi, full moon day in 563 BC in Lumbini. The modern day it is in Nepal. In Hinduism, Buddha is considered as the 9th avatar of Lord Vishnu. Lord Gautam Buddha preached dharma, non-violence, harmony, and kindness. He left his worldly possessions and princedom at the age of 30 to lead a self-searching for the truth, seeking penance in the hopes of liberating himself from suffering. Media conference with Lal Goyal on this auspicious occasion wishes you all a very happy Buddha Purnima. Now coming to the main topic, that is COVID returns impact on Indian economy. Economy is the state of a country or region in terms of the production and consumption of goods and services and the supply of money. According to Carabel, we call the economy that we constantly measure with specific numbers was not really invented until the 20th century. It was invented because of the Great Depression. So the government starts calculating out this single official number called national income. It is the forerunner of today's gross domestic product or GDP, and it's basically the value of all the goods and services produced in the country in a year. You need to calculate GDP because if you want help from the World Bank or the United Nations. Adam Smith was an 18th century Scottish economist, philosopher, and author, and is considered the father of modern economics. An economy form when groups of people leverage their unique skills, interests, and desire to trade with each other voluntarily. Then they trade the portable representation of their productive value money for other goods and services. The total sum of these productive efforts is referred to as an economy. The economic history of India begins with the Indus Valley civilization, that is 3300 to 1300 BCE. The economy appears to have depended significantly on trade and of overseas trade. The Vedic period saw countable units of precious metal being used for exchange. The term Nishaka appears in this sense in the Rig Veda. Largest economy in the world for most of the historically, India was the largest economy in the world for most of the next 3 millennia, starting around the first millennia BCE and ending around the beginning of British Raj. The independent India adopted central planning for most of its independent history with extensive public ownership, regulation, red tape, and trade barriers. After the 1991 economic crisis, the central government launched economic liberalization, allowing it to emerge as one of the world's fastest growing large economies. Since the early 1990s, India has slowly opened up its market by reducing government control on foreign trade and investment. This was started by Mr. Manmohan Singh under the leadership of Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. The economic impact of the 2020 coronavirus pandemic in India has been largely disruptive. India's growth in the fourth quarter of the fiscal year 2020 went down to 3.1% according to Ministry of Statistics. The chief economic advisor to the government of India said that this drop is mainly due to the coronavirus pandemic effect on the Indian economy. Notably, India had also been witnessing a pandemic slowdown. And according to the World Bank, the current pandemic has magnified pre-existing risks to India's economic outlook. The World Bank and rating agencies had initially revised India's growth for financial year 2021 with the lowest figures India has seen in 3 decades since India's economic liberalization in the 1990s. However, after the announcement of the economic package in mid-May, India's GDP estimates were downgraded even more to negative figures, signaling a deep recession. On 26 May 2020, CRISIL announced that this will perhaps be India's worst recession since independence. State Bank of India research estimates a contraction of over 40% in the GDP in Q1. The contraction will not be uniform. Rather, it will differ according to various parameters such as state and sector. On 1st September 2020, the Ministry of Statistics released the GDP figures for Q1, April to June, financial year 21, which showed a contraction of 24% as compared to the same period the year before. According to Nomura India Business Resumption Index, economic activity fell from 82.9 on 22nd March to 44.7 on 26th April. By 13th September 2020, economic activity was nearly back to pre-lockdown. Unemployment rose from 6.7% on 15 March to 26% on 19th April 2020, and then back down to pre-lockdown levels by mid-June. During the lockdown, an estimated 14 crores, 140 million people lost employment while salaries were cut for many others. More than 45% of households across the nation have reported an income drop as compared to the previous year. The Indian economy was expected to lose over 32,000 crores, approximately 4.5 billion US dollars every day during the first 21 days of complete lockdown, which was declared following the coronavirus outbreak. Under complete lockdown, less than a quarter of India's $2.8 trillion economic movement was functional. Up to 53% of the businesses in the country were projected to be significantly affected. Supply chains have been put under stress with the lockdown restrictions in place. Initially, there was a lack of clarity in streamlining what an essential is and what is not. Those in the informal sectors and daily wages group have been at the most risk. A large number of farmers around the country who grow perishable also faced uncertainty. India had also been witnessing a pre-pandemic slowdown. Even before the pandemic, since financial year 2018-19, India's growth was falling 8% in Q4 financial year 18 to 4.5 in Q2 financial year 20. In January 2020 itself, well before India's lockdown or reactions to the pandemic, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, reduced India's GDP estimates for 2019 and also reduced the 2020 GDP forecast. The 2016 Indian banknote demonetization and goods and service tax GST enactment in 2017 led to severe back-to-back disruptions in the economy. On top of this, there had been numerous banking crises such as the infrastructure, leasing and financial services, ILFS crisis, and government schemes failures such as that of Make in India. There was also a significant income crunch for both rural and urban sectors in the year prior to the lockdown. Now, COVID has come back in this year. So in this year, the report says the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, recently said the resurgence of COVID has dented but not depleted economic activities in the first half of the first quarter of 2021-22. Although still extremely tentative, the overall assessment is that the loss of momentum is not as severe as it was at this time a year ago. The central bank said in its State of the Economy report, the impact of the second wave on the real economy seems to be limited so far in comparison with the first wave, the RBI said. Evidently, the localized nature of lockdowns, better adoption of people to work from home protocols, online delivery models, e-commerce, and digital payments were at work, the report said. The RBI said real economy indicators moderated in April and May 2021 as many states imposed restrictions to arrest the renewed surge in infections. According to the RBI report, the impact of the new infections appears to be U-shaped. Each shoulder of the U represents sectors that are weathering the storm. Agriculture at one end and IT on the other. On the slopes of the U are organized and automated manufacturing on one side, and on the other, services that can be delivered remotely and do not require producers and consumers to move, it said. Adding, these activities continue to function under pandemic protocols. In the well of the U are the most vulnerable blue-collar groups who have to risk exposure for a living and for rest of society to survive, doctors and healthcare workers, law and order and municipal personals, individuals out daily livelihood, small businesses, organized and unorganized, and they will warrant priority in policy interventions. Now, when we are talking about COVID returns, I would like to put some data to you. Yesterday, on 25th May 2021, India registered 8,886 new cases of coronavirus, which has taken the country's cumulative tally past 2,71,56,000 cases. Yesterday, 4,172 lost their life, thus total death due to corona raised to 3,11,421. Media conference with Lal Goyal will not vouch this official figure because there are lots of contrary figures are coming up. Even the latest New York Times has given the figures which are far, far higher than these official figures. So neither we will vouch for the official figure or those figures which the media is projecting, that is 5 to 10 times more what is the official figures given about the deaths, about the new cases, and about the total impact in India. According to health officials, India has administered 19 crores 85 lakhs 38,999 vaccine doses across the country as of yesterday, 25th May 2021. Now, by this way, the total vaccination which is going on right now is about 15 lakhs to 16 lakhs, between 14 lakhs to 16 lakhs a day. If this will be the condition of the vaccination, then how we are going to give the 200 crores doses to our citizens, that is also a very, very important aspect. Right now, because of the lockdowns in many of the states, the cases have come down and they are planning to start reopen the states. But whether this unlocking will not bring back the cases, because we are not near anywhere to the herd immunity. And until we will not reach the herd immunity, the chances of getting mutation for third wave, fourth wave are very much there. So let's hope that the better sense prevails to everyone, not only to our country, but to the vaccine manufacturers, and they will supply the vaccines to the country so that the Indians can have the vaccine in time and we can be again open like in other countries. Now they are started opening their economy and they are booming now. Now coming to the main topic, that is COVID returns impact on Indian economy. We have a very elite, experienced, those who are authority in this field, the panelists with us. I would like to invite my first panelist. He is Mr. D.B. Mehta, ex-IRS. Mr. D.B. Mehta, ex-IRS, is ACA, ACMA, BGL. He worked for 10 years in the Indian Revenue Services in senior positions. He is the group chairman of Allegro with business interest in real estate, construction, renewable energy, wind power, financial markets, and automobiles dealership. He is the vice president, Credai Karnataka. He is the chairman of IGBC Mangalore. He is the independent director of Mangaluru Smart City Limited. He is the founding member of Mangalore Custom Tax and GST Retired Officers Association. He is the past president, Mangalore Stock Exchange Limited and Canara Builders Association and Credai Mangalore. He is the former director, Interconnected Stock Exchanges of India. Welcome, Mr. D.B. Mehta, on our show. Mr. D.B. Mehta, you have heard the report which I read. The report very clearly says that the last year, that is the pandemic 2020, the COVID-19 2020, the conditions, economy was in a very, very bad shape because the complete lockdown. But now the indications, as the RBI is also mentioned, this time after this second wave of COVID returns, that conditions are not that bad, which we have seen in 2020, because now the government, even the citizens, everyone become more smart, more knowledgeable, and they've started behaving far better than the last time. And that's why the economy is in better shape in comparison to the last time. But the fear again is about the vaccination, the herd immunity. But we will discuss that point afterwards. Now, I would like to know from you, your views on COVID returns, impact on Indian economy. Mr. D.B. Mehta, please.
Yeah, it's a well-known fact that we had a terrible FY21 with a negative economic GDP of 7.7%. For the current year, the RBI's economic survey has taken into account the GDP growth of 11.5%, which will be subject to revision primarily because of the COVID second wave and maybe the third wave as well. The international rating agencies has already downgraded the projected GDP for the FY22 between 8.5 to 9.5%. The finance minister in its budget has estimated a nominal GDP growth of 14.4%, and taking into account the expected inflation of 4.5% for the current year, the finance minister has also taken estimation of 9.9% in the budget. Now, looking at these broad parameters, we have to look at the international scenario as well. The international GDP estimation for the current financial year is estimated close to 6%. Now, why international growth is very relevant for India? Because this year, as we have noticed, the exports will be booming. The internal target of the government of India is to have anywhere between $360 to $375 billion of exports for FY22, which is showing, which is estimating a growth of close to 18% in its exports. Now, exports constitute 12 to 13% of our GDP. So if you're having estimation of a growth of 18% in exports, we are looking at a direct positive impact of 2% of our GDP straight from the exports. If we look at the corporate sector, whatever results have been announced in the stock exchanges of the listed entities, we are seeing a growth in the turnover of all the listed companies close to around 15%. And in the profitability, there is a growth of close to around 18 to 19%. This has kept the stock markets at a historical high valuation. The growth estimate in EPS for FY22 is close to 20% over and above the last year's high growth rate achieved in the EPS. So the P ratio of the current stock exchange, NSE, is close to 29 P ratio, which is historical high, and which is discounting the high EPS growth expected in the FY22. Now, looking at the corporate returns, you may get a feeling that the GDP growth is much higher than what are the numbers predicted by RBI and by the finance minister. The unseen factor in this is the unorganized sector. The unorganized sector has taken a very, very big hit. And as you had mentioned in your preface, we had a few disruptions in the last couple of years, starting with demonetization, then GST and COVID. All this have affected the unorganized sector in a very big way, and the benefit has gone to the organized sector. So what is happening in the current economic scenario is businesses are shifting from the unorganized sector to the organized sector. The digital revolution which is happening, that is also aiding more and more the organized sector against the unorganized sector. Now, a large section of our society, a large section of our population is in the unorganized sector. And if the unorganized sector is going to fare poorly as it has done in the last year, and it's also going to fare poorly in the current financial year due to the COVID wave 2 and maybe possibly wave 3 also, there will be a general feeling of people losing jobs. There will be a general feeling of people not having the same income as in the previous years, and more acute sense of poverty. Now, this dichotomy will continue for the next 1 or 2 years. And as the corporate sector slowly ebbs its growth, the unorganized sector will catch up. But for the next 1 year or so, the prognosis for the unorganized sector is equally bad. Now, if you look at the NPAs in the current financial year, which the banks are worried about, is coming more from the unorganized sector. Whatever NPAs had to come from the organized sector had already come in the previous few years, and the banks are already grappling with a very high NPA. But moving here on, the NPA problem will be more from the unorganized sector rather than from the organized sector. The stimulus packages which have been announced by the developed world as well as India in particular will be a booster to stabilize the economy. But unless and until we see more steps taken by our government to generate businesses within the unorganized sector, the Indian economy will still struggle, because unorganized sector contributes nothing less than 30 to 35% to our GDP, including the agriculture sector. This is one area which will be struggling even in the current year and the year to come. So the emphasis of the government has to see that how best the stimulation package is designed to reach to this particular sector, rather than giving more stimulus to the corporate sector, which has shown tremendous growth itself in FY21, when the GDP for the overall nation is -7 and 7.7%. And in the current year also, it is estimated that corporate sector will do extremely well. So the emphasis of the government has to have a reorientation more towards the unorganized sector than towards the organized sector. Yeah, over to you, Mr. Gaurav.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. D.B. Mehta, for giving your views. And Mr. D.B. Mehta says very clearly that yes, last year was a bad time because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But he also mentioned one thing. He says during this year, from the last year only, that things have started moving towards the export. And he says there is a growth of 18% of the export, which was a tremendous growth, which resulted about 2% contribution to the GDP, which is a very, very important thing. So he says one thing is very clear, that the government, the GDP which we are projecting because of the export has picked up. Secondly, he mentioned that the big corporates are doing very well. Their growth is tremendous. The only mostly hit sector is the unorganized sector, which he says and which he worried if there are more stimulus will not given more priority will not be given to the MSMEs or the unorganized sectors, then there will be an imbalance, and because the big corporates are going to reap the benefits maximum. So according to him, what he says is the imbalance is between the big corporates and the unorganized sector, and for this he wants the government has to take active action so that the small sectors, the unorganized sector, the MSME can also contribute to the GDP of the country. Thank you very much, Mr. D.B. Mehta, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next guest. He is Professor Dr. R. Gopal. Professor Dr. R. Gopal is the director and head of the department, D.Y. Patil University. He is the former dean, D.Y. Patil University School of Management. He is basically an engineer from IIT Kharagpur in mechanical engineering. He is also MBA, ICWA, PhD and postdoctoral research degree DLIT. He is also the member board of management of the Ajinkya D.Y. Patil University. He has more than 27 years of corporate experience with Bush India Limited, Larsen & Toubro, Tata Economic Consultancy Services, and Siemens. Additionally, he has more than 30 years of teaching experience in various B schools in and around Mumbai in the areas of marketing, finance, and general management, etc. He was the visiting faculty in several B schools in USA. In the USA, he has conducted several programs on topics like how to do business in India. He has also published more than 200 research papers, both in Indian and foreign journals. He has been awarded the best outstanding research paper at the Asia Pacific Marketing Conference held in Malaysia. He is also a reviewer to several international journals having a high impact factor. He is the guide for MPhil and PhD students of the several universities in India. More than 100 research scholars have received their PhD and MPhil degree under his guidance. He is also the author of several books and is the chief editor to several national and international journals of repute. Dr. R. Gopal is the recipient of several national and international awards such as Rashtriya Vidya Saraswati Puruskar, Rashtriya Vikas Ratna Award, Glory of India Award, Rajiv Gandhi Education Excellence Award, Best Teacher Award, Best Management Teacher Award, Educationist Award, Star of Asia Award, and many, many more. Welcome, Professor Dr. R. Gopal on our show. Please unmute yourself, Professor Gopal. Professor Gopal, you have heard our earliest panelist guest, Mr. D.B. Mehta, and he has given a very, very clear picture about Indian economy. He says, although the big corporates are doing well, export is booming, but the small sectors, unorganized sectors, MSME are not doing well, and which is a backbone of our economy. So his emphasis is the government should give more attention towards these sectors. Now, we would like to know from you the COVID returns impact on Indian economy. Professor Dr. R. Gopal, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Goyal. And good morning to Goyal's Lal Sahab, Mehta, Karnan, and all my viewers on Global TV, B4 News, viewers on YouTube, Facebook, etc. The topic for the day, COVID returns, impact on Indian economy, is a very interesting topic. However, before we get into the nitty-gritties of the impact of COVID returns, or as COVID wave 2, as I would like to call it, I want to talk a little bit on the impact of COVID-1, and therefore my entire talk has been divided into 4 parts. 1, issues facing the Indian economy, impact of COVID-1 on Indian economy, impact of COVID wave 2 on Indian economy, and number 3, what can Indian businessmen at the ground level, especially the MSME, do in order to survive? And finally, the very important and crucial thing is, what can young India do on the onslaught of COVID wave 2? So let's begin. The major issues facing the Indian economy before and after COVID-1 and 2 has been supply chain logistics, poor and not so good infrastructure, consumer goods, buying taking a big hit both in rural as well as urban India due to falling wealth, and finally the credit squeeze of the MSME sector. a sector which everybody says is the main driver of the employment. The Atmanirbhar packet in May 2020 announced by the government announced several packages like the free food for migrant, direct transfer of money to beneficiaries, granting credit in moratorium, contribution to employment funds, etc. The government also banned imports from China, which was a very good thing. Till the beginning of COVID-1, India was known as the pharmaceutical and vaccine supplier of the world. This was possible because India imported a huge amount of a huge amount of active pharmaceutical ingredients from China, almost to the tune of 18,000 to 20,000 crores. These imports came under severe restrictions from the government of India. The net effect has been, as you have rightly pointed out, everybody, that the GDP in the first quarter, in the first year, that is financial year 2020-2021, has contracted to about 7% to 8%. Unemployment has also increased tremendously. January 2021, economists and the government felt that the pandemic was over, and several economists predicted a V-shaped recovery with the GDP rising to around 10%. Then came COVID wave 2. And this was primarily because we felt there is no need to maintain our guard, like masking, social distancing, etc., and also due to the new influx of COVID variants. The impact has been much more severe than the impact of COVID wave 1. And this has caused tremendous because of the shortage in oxygen, beds, doctors, ICUs, remdesivir injections, etc. And all this has been because of the poor logistics, roadways, and shortages in production. The government adopted several strategies, like increasing testing, and it is said that by December 2021, 216 crore doses would be available, sufficient to vaccinate 90% of the population in the age group of 18 to 45, and new vaccines like Sputnik, Moderna would be allowed to come in. As it is right now, Sputnik vaccine is available at a price of 1,250. Imports of oxygen containers, liquid oxygen, ventilators, etc., are being taken up in a big way. The new 2DG anti-COVID drug could be a game changer. The government panel has estimated that the second wave would end by July first week, and the third wave would begin after 6 to 8 months. The major challenge, however, remains, as I said earlier, supply chain and logistics issues and poor infrastructure. Sector-wise, I had carried out a small survey in February 2021 by discussing with several industry personnel. And the detailed analysis indicated to me that food and beverages, pharmaceutical infrastructure sector, that means basically roadways, consumer goods, banking and financial sector, insurance, supply chain and logistics, power sector, and IT sector would grow in a small way by around 4% per annum, while sectors like consumer durables, gems and jewelry, retail trade, aviation and automobile would show a moderate growth of 2% per annum, while sectors like tourism, hospitality, MSME sector, building and construction would show a negative growth rate till the end of the financial year 2022. In addition to the above, there appears to be a little bit positive scenes coming in. According to CMI, technology and infrastructure account for nearly 60% of the total capital inflows. India attracted the highest ever FDI inflow of 81.7 billion in the year 2021, 10% more than last year. Bank credit grew by 6% to 109 lakh crores in the fortnight ending 7 May 2021. There is an increased spend in infrastructure, roadways, metro railways by the various state governments. Flipkart announced expansion to grow its grocery service in more than 70 cities. Amazon announced starting off manufacturing of electronic products. India and Kuwait decided to establish a joint ministerial commission to strengthen ties in sectors such as energy, trade, investment, manpower, labor, and IT. Parliament itself has approved a bill to increase for FDI in the insurance sector from 49 to 74%, and consequently, insurance, banking, and financial sector will see a good growth. Additionally, across the globe, unmanned flying taxis are expected to be available by 2024. And based upon these positives which we see in the Indian economy, ICR has estimated that the GDP would be around 9.5% for the year financial year 2021-22. The most optimistic has been around 8%. The basis being vaccination for all, greater investment by private sector, pent-up demand, and fiscal spend by the government of India in infrastructure. This growth rate would be driven by sectors like IT, chemicals, especially the manufacture of APIs, supply chain, warehousing, banking and insurance, and financial sector. The flip side being rising inflation, falling tax collection, increased fiscal deficit, higher retail fuel costs resulting in increasing transport, and a rising unemployment index. Under these circumstances, what should the MSME sector do? Because if the Indian economy has to grow, then automatically you need the MSME sector to grow. Fundamentally, the MSME sector has to decrease its fixed cost and move towards operating on variable cost. Cost efficiency is the most important aspect. Work from home is the new norm, and companies must learn to provide value to its customers. MSMEs must increase the economies of scale, and their move is towards digital ways of operating. Robotics, data analytics, AI, etc. will be the future. Typically, in Bangalore, for example, there are a couple of hotels which use robotics to cater to its customers. And this is something which is the norm of the day. Produce for India first, then scale up to the global market. The motto should be make for Bharat, go global. Innovations, R&D, GMPs are a must. Very, very critical, very, very important. And I've been saying this in many of the forums, that there is a need to shed the Chalta hai attitude that many of the MSMEs have. Young India, for Young India, the opportunities arising out of wave 1 and wave 2 is tremendous. Young India can become entrepreneurs, either in the area of products through innovations, import substitutions, processes, application of digital technology, training, that means conduct training programs, merchant exports, and become consultants in the area of organizational process improvement, strategic management, market research, etc. And very important, coming from the education sector, I can see a lot of openings in the education sector for Young India as faculties. In conclusion, I can say, one, the impact of COVID returns or wave 2 would have a debilitating effect on the Indian economy. Certain sectors of the Indian economy would show positive market growth. Unemployment index would increase, and there is an urgent need to infuse some amount of stimulus on the line similar to Atmanirbhar package, especially for the MSME sectors. And with this, thank you very much for patient listening, and God bless. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. R. Gopal, for giving your views. And Professor Dr. R. Gopal also agrees with Mr. D.B. Mehta that the maximum hit is with the MSMEs and the unorganized sectors. But what he says is, because we have banned the Chinese import, that's why the pharmaceuticals companies as well as the vaccination program has been derailed in the way which it has to go. And he has also mentioned that now, because the government has given the stimulus last time, he expects that the government should come out with a stimulus of like Atmanirbhar Bharat again to give again the boost up. Although he also agrees with the RBI report that this time the impact is not that severe like last time. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. R. Gopal, for giving your views. Definitely, I have some tough questions which I'm going to ask in the next round. But now I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Mr. R. Kannan. Mr. R. Kannan is the corporate advisor and keynote speaker. He is ex-TCS, ICICI Bank, and Hinduja Group. Mr. R. Kannan is an expert in finance and strategy with more than 35 years experience, and during his career as a management consultant as a key member of corporate headquarters in various corporates including TCS and PwC as management consultant, Hinduja Group as vice president and head of strategy, ICICI Infotech as executive vice president and head of strategy, ICICI Bank Group as executive vice president strategy. He carried out assignments relating to corporate finance, fundraising, treasury management, strategy formulation and implementation, organization restructuring, corporate performance management, business development, and mergers and acquisitions. In his last role, he was heading the corporate performance monitoring and research function at the group level in Hinduja Group, dealing in aspects relating to planning, budgeting, performance monitoring, business development, M&A, and global economic and industry research. He is a member of expert committee in FICCI, CII, Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Indian Merchants Chamber on committees relating to private equity, industry, economy, banking, transportation, and environment. He is the member of National Task Force on Artificial Intelligence of CII. He had attended programs organized by World Bank, International Institute of Finance, Asian Development Bank, AIIB on international finance. He has spoken in seminars on union budget, Indian economy, banking and management at annual CFO and management conferences. As a speaker in various forums, he was in the jury of selecting best CFOs in India. He was a member on the board of studies of SIES School of Management for 5 years and presently the member of Academic Advisory Council in Birla Institute of Management Technology, Greater Noida, and Vaxen School of Management, Hyderabad. He was the president of 75-year-old Bombay Tamil Sangam for 3 years. He is a visiting faculty in leading management institutes on finance, strategy, organization restructuring, and turnaround management. He has a personal interest in global and Indian economy and shared his ideas on economic development and economic crisis with the government stakeholders from across the world, and some of the recommendations on crisis resolutions and economic development were implemented by the government authorities across the world and Indian government. He has received several awards from different organizations. Welcome, Mr. R. Kannan on our show. Mr. Kannan, you have heard our earlier panelist guest, Mr. D.B. Mehta, as well as Professor Dr. R. Gopal. Both are of the views that yes, the economy has been hit, but it was hit very badly last year in the first wave, that is COVID-19 2020. But now in the COVID returns, that is the second wave, economy is hit, but not that way because of many reasons which they have already explained. But one thing is common in both the, our panelist has agreed that the main sufferer, even for the COVID return, is the MSMEs or the unorganized sectors or the small traders. Now, we would like to know from you, your views on COVID returns, impact on Indian economy. Mr. R. Kannan, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Goyal, for giving me this opportunity. Good afternoon to all of you. I was really very happy that most of the points are covered by Mr. Lal and Mr. Dharmendra Mehta and Professor Gopal. So if you look at this COVID return, and the COVID what we saw in the last year, if you look at any economy or any company, even the best company in the world, you will find there are always a scope for improvement by 10 to 15%. And a typical company in an economy which is doing very well, you will always find that the companies have a scope to improve their performance by 20-30%. So I would say, I'm very happy. The last 5 years, what has happened, I am a speaker in various CFO for conferences. So one of the challenges which CFOs were saying was that how we are going to digitize our enterprise. So that was the conversation which was always happening in CFO conferences. And what has happened, this COVID came, fortunately, we had this broadband and data penetration in India, which has happened in the last 5 years, thanks to companies like Reliance Jio, which made the data very cheap. And today, I believe India is #1 data consumer in the world. So when the COVID came, if you ask me, since there was a good penetration of this mobile and smart mobiles and all that, it made our life easier. It made our lives easier in terms of working from home. In fact, we heard that when the first meeting was held by RBI after COVID, the governor said that 250 people, only 250 people were working for RBI using data and all that. So that has helped. So what has happened when the COVID happened, many of the large enterprises, they had their inefficiencies in the system. So it gave an opportunity for them to look at their own structure, corporate structure. As Mr. Mehta said, this year we expect 20% improvement in profit by corporates. How this is going to happen? Now we have the top line. If you take, you see all the companies which are reporting the results, they are not showing a big increase in top line. It is all coming from bottom line. How they are able to achieve? As I said, there are a lot of inefficiencies in the system. Suppose I tell you, when I was working in a software industry 35 years ago, we used to operate only 60 to 63% of manpower utilization. Today, you see manpower utilization by IT companies 80%. So something similar happened with all the corporates, where they looked at each activity and looked at whether it is adding value. So whichever activity which was not adding value, they removed those activities. That's one. Second is, many of the corporates had drawn up a big expansion plan, because of which they had a plan to borrow a lot of money. Since the COVID came, many of the corporates are still operating under less than 70% of capacity, which means unless you reach a capacity utilization of 75%, there is no need for capex. So most of the corporates, what they have done, they have stopped their capex activity. Plus, like I told you, they looked at each part and they removed all those non-performing assets. And you see all the companies which are reporting the results, all of them said that they went and reduced the debt in their balance sheet. So instead of expansion, they're talking about debt reduction. That is resulting in profit. So this is for large companies. Like I will not elaborate too much on SMEs, because it was already very well elaborated by all three of you. So, but what has happened with when you come to this SMEs, many of them are depending on these large corporates since the activity levels have gone down. For example, last year, when the national lockdown was announced, the capacity utilization came down for every company from 100% to 0%. No activity could be undertaken. Whereas this time, this is not a national lockdown. This is a selected lockdown by each state. And plus, during this period, companies learned how to manage this lockdown. So they were able to do, like Professor Gopal mentioned, one industry which has created a lot of employment is these companies like Amazon, companies like Flipkart, all these delivery type of activities, they picked up momentum, and warehousing, logistics, supply chain. So these activities picked up a lot of momentum. They were able to employ people. But at the same time, since large corporates went in for rationalization, many people lost jobs in large corporates. Similarly, SME, SME includes even people who are selling goods on the road, yeah, street vendors. So imagine when there is a lockdown, what will happen to all these street vendors? So this is the position of corporates. Coming to government, one thing what has happened because of this COVID, everybody has to increase the budget towards health. Whether it's an individual, whether it's a government, whether it's a state government or whether it's a central government, their budget for health has to be increased. But at the same time, the activity levels are down. I'm happy that I have spoken in few seminars on GST also, not webinars. Of course, I spoke in 2-3 webinars on GST also. So the GST potential in India per month is we can collect 1,40,000 crores. So actually, I think last month the government was able to collect 1,40,000 crores. Imagine this was possible where the higher level of digitization in the Indian economy. Even most of the things what we used to buy through cash, now we are buying through digital. So everything has been captured. So, and plus, as you are all aware, government has made a they have taken a lot of steps in terms of tracking the trucks which are traveling. So the GST collection was very good. But this month, I believe, this is likely to be much less. And the report on power generation has come out for last month, which is not very, very encouraging. So government's revenue also, if you look at, it has come down, but at the same time, its obligation towards expenditure has gone up. So what government has done? So one of the issues in India is that employment. Every year in India, we have to provide employment to 1.2 crore people every year. Whereas what has happened in the last 2 years, a lot of employment loss, both in the organized and unorganized sector. But one good thing what has happened is that I think NREGA government used to allocate only 60,000 crores per annum. They increased the budget to more than 100,000 crores per annum. So NREGA supports 5 crore families. 5 crore people can work 100 days in a year. They'll get minimum 212 rupees. So that way, 25 crore family, 25 crore population is covered. Then government has introduced a scheme. There is also a Food Security Act is there. Then government introduced a scheme for free ration to 80 crore people through ration. So I think it is still continuing. I'm not sure whether they are going to continue or not. So that way they made sure that it is available. And agriculture has done very well. You know, we had a problem of migration. People going from rural areas to urban areas to rural areas. And we always think that the rural areas mainly depend on agriculture only. I am from a rural area. I am from a village. So what I find today, village, the farmers have diversified their activities. They are not just doing agriculture. You come to my village today, I am very surprised. There are 100 shops today, at least 4 or 5 of them selling mobile phones, 2-3 repairing mobile phones. There is a shop selling two-wheelers. And about 3 kilometers from the village, there is a petrol pump. So there is a diversification. And there the NREGA activity takes place. One more thing, when compared to the last general election, 2014 and 2019, the number of national parties are increased 5 times. So if you go to any village, there are 3 parties, they require at least 10 workers. So plus we have this Panchayati Raj, which has been given autonomy. So if you ask me, the rural level, of course, this COVID-2, it has affected rural also. Otherwise, COVID-1, rural was not affected much. So agriculture continued. And these people were able to sustain themselves where the cost of living there is very low. And coming to personal level, as I told you, many people have lost their jobs. The income levels have come down. Many corporates have reduced the income of people also. But what has happened, the personal savings in India used to be only 17% of GDP. Actually, it has gone to 22% of GDP today, but on a lower income level. So people are saving money, thinking that they may have to spend money for emergencies, for health, and they are saving money. Plus, we used to spend a lot of money on travel. India is the second largest country in the world, where domestic travel is the highest after China. So people used to spend 7-8% of their income on travel for festivals, for marriages, and movies. So imagine, but there are sectors which are affected, like accommodation, travel, tourism, media industry. A lot of people are really struggling. So if you ask me, this COVID-2 returns, it is a mixed bag today. And we have only 2 medicines as of today approved. Of course, Sputnik is coming. I expect that in another 2-3 months, we will have 5-6 medicines coming. And I'm sure by the end of this year, we should be able to vaccinate 70-80%. And people are saying this type of thing is likely to continue, is not going to stop. Imagine once this COVID gets over, what will happen to the factories which are set up for manufacturing these medicines? So my take is that we might have something similar coming up, so where these factories can be used. And going forward, what has to be done, like Professor Gopal said, if you have gone to other parts of the world, mainly developed countries in the world, they spend a lot of money for stimulating the economy, corporates, and individuals. In fact, US has got an act which supports individuals, it supports, so they have more than $3 trillion now. So something similar, of course, we brought a package which was not very large. 20 lakh what was said, but not all 20 lakh crore was being spent on this. But this year there is a big need. But what has happened now, most of the states are under lockdown, which means most of factories are closed. So activities are similar to last year's levels, like last year. So government has to pitch in. One good thing is that RBI gave 99,000 crores to government. Other good thing is that the interest rates, government has brought down substantially, which is good for the government, but it's not good for people who are living on fixed deposits. So it's really a challenge for the government. And one thing I want to tell you, the economic history is replete with examples where whenever the assumptions are made, they are always going RE. For example, Professor Goyal talked about 1991 liberalization. When people said when the Indian economy is liberalized, Indian companies will die, multinationals will come up. Where it was the other way around. When in pharma industry, they introduced a product patent, we said that all multinational companies will become the leaders, Indian pharma companies will be the laggards. But whereas it was the other way around. Similarly, we thought that if we introduce GST, it is going to increase a lot of revenue for government. It was the other way around. So the economic history is replete with examples that we always make some assumptions. We assume that COVID-1 will go away. So what government did, wherever they created the centers for treating patients, they dismantled them, and suddenly the COVID-2 came. So it was not expected at all. So the assumptions we make, and today when we make assumptions, we have to be ready with all scenarios possible. So like one of you said, there could be phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, but I wish that it should end with the phase 2, thanks to all the medicines which are coming up. One more thing is that only way we can attack this is we can blame state government, we can blame central government, but we have to blame ourselves. If each individual is responsible and take care of what is being told to us in terms of precautions to be taken, I am sure this will go away soon. This is all what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kannan, for giving your views. And as usual, everyone used to blame the Indian public that we are responsible for the second wave, although I differ, because a child always follows what the parents are doing. If our role models, the leaders, if they are behaving irresponsibly, then we cannot blame, shift the blame to the public at large. I'm not talking of one leader, I'm talking irrespective of all the political parties. Now, thank you very much. But what Mr. Kannan has mentioned that very, very clearly, he said it's a mixed bag. And he has mentioned about that how the big companies are taking advantage because they learned the lesson the last time and they have tried to rationalize the things, although there is lots of jobs cut, but they've turned themselves, and they have, because they have started the digitalization in their organization, so they can sustain this COVID returns wave. And that's why they are doing well. He has also mentioned about the company like Amazon or the Jio, that they are doing well because of their network and because the requirement as of now, because of lockdown, during the lockdown, people want the delivery at home. So the companies like Amazon are doing well. Everybody is using the data because there is no other way to spend time in home. So people are, and the online education is on, work from home is on. So that's why these companies are doing well. But the reality, as everyone is saying, even Mr. Kannan is also saying, it's a mixed bag for the small traders, the street vendors. They are in a bad shape. But he has also mentioned about the vaccine, and he says that Indian vaccines. I will like to mention only two things. One thing is that the Indian vaccine manufacturer is a vendor. He is not the person who has organized or who has invented the vaccine. There is research was from Oxford. The company fund is the AstraZeneca, and it was funded by the others, not by the government of India. Government of India has not paid any money initially, and that's why the reports which you and as well as Professor Gopal has mentioned, that you are very hopeful for getting the vaccine. But the reality is that the vaccine is not available in the international market because other countries have cornered all the vaccines. Plus, they have booked for the double doses. They have even hoarded, in one way, you can say it's a hoarding of vaccine. Although our foreign minister is in USA right now, negotiating very hard to get some vaccines, but the delay is already costing us. Thank you very much, Mr. Kannan, for giving your views. Now, I would like to ask the question, which may be easy for you, but difficult for me. My first question goes to Mr. D.B. Mehta. Mr. Mehta, first demonetization, then GST, now COVID. According to you, they all are roadblocks or laying a strong foundation for Indian economy? And do you agree more multinational companies and big corporates will be reaping benefit of this COVID, like Amazon and Jio and all those? What do you say about this, Mr. Mehta?
See, it is said that the pandemic time and war times are the best time for corporate. They really make money during these times. And this pandemic is no different globally. All the corporates have been really reaping in the benefits. The unorganized sector is the sector which takes a hit. The unemployment in COVID-1, which skyrocketed to 26%, in COVID-2, it's only 14%, which is a very noteworthy figure to take into account, that unemployment is not as high as it was in the first phase. Having said that, if you look at the Indian economy, it has to move towards the digital format, because unorganized sector can grow in a very limited fashion. It's like the old Hindu rate of growth of 3 to 6%. If the Indian economy has to leapfrog into the global stage of $5 trillion economy, we had to bring in these reforms of digital economy, A, B, GST, maybe more taxation reforms, maybe more liberalization on FDI front, more liberalization on labor reforms, administrative reforms. It's a long list and it's a long way to go. But unless and until we bring in this disruption, we will not be able to achieve the 5 trillion economy which we are planning to achieve. Forget about the year. It may be 2027, 28, or it may be even 2029. But to grow to a $5 trillion economy, unless and until we bring in reforms across the board, it will not be an easy task. So disruptions, yes, in the short term, but in the long run, it's good for the economy.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. D.B. Mehta, for giving your views. Now, my question goes to Professor Dr. R. Gopal. Professor Dr. R. Gopal, do you think the delaying in lockdown, this phase, I am talking of this phase 2, Even the central government has still not declared the lockdown. It is the state which are doing the lockdown, but they have also delayed, as everybody knows, organizing elections, whether it was in the 4 states and 1 union territory, or the panchayat elections in UP and other places. Organizing Kumbh Mela, organizing Holi will be the reason for the impacting the Indian economy very badly in future, this year, which and who will be liable for that? Whether, as Mr. Kannan says, the Indian public is liable for all these things to organize the elections, in spite of everybody was knowing that the COVID, and Mr. Kannan says that it has come unannounced. No, Mr. Kannan, the fact is in October only, rather August, September, the knocking was there. And October, it was very clear the second wave is coming. But because the politicians, I will not say the government, I say politicians, respective of all the parties, are interested more in elections, more on the chairs. They want to sit. They are not bothered for the public at large. That's why they have kept that report under wraps. And that's why they have not disclosed that the second wave is coming. If they would have disclosed, all these elections would have been postponed. So we are not unaware. We are, and even if we were knowing, we have given our vaccines to other countries. There was no contractual obligation. It was there, it is still there, then still we have banned this export. So one cannot say if the Oxford or this Serum Institute is facing legal suits now, they would have faced earlier also. So it is a failure of our systematically, we have failed. And if we are doing, Mr. Professor Gopal, we are blaming ourselves. But the thing is, these factors, do you think are the main factors? That's why this COVID returns is impacted very badly. And that's why the economy is going to suffer.
Lal Sahab, I fully agree with what you're saying. There is no doubt about it that all the factors which you mentioned, not maintaining social distancing, not maintaining masking, not anticipating that wave 2 is coming, is a fact of life. There is no doubt about it. Okay, and that is one of the things. Second, one of the other very important thing is our supply chain logistics for vaccination, for oxygen, for ICU beds, etc. is another very important cause for all of this. We can keep blaming the public, we can keep blaming the government, we can keep blaming everybody. The fact is that the government of India, to a certain extent, bowed down to the pressures coming up from the state government and said vaccine will be allowed for 18 to 45 age group, without taking into account whether the vaccination is available or not. With the result, when it suddenly opened, there were a huge amount of problem. And let's not forget one very important thing, sir. The number of COVID variants has increased tremendously because we allowed people from other countries to come in and all sorts of things, etc. We can blame everybody. But all this has got a major impact on the Indian economy. But I am sure, I'm absolutely sure, because we have risen from the dust and we become one of the great, economies of the world. I'm quite sure this pandemic will also throw open to us greater opportunities, and we will be able to overcome it, and we will and we can overcome it, provided, of course, we believe in one very important thing, and that is vaccinate, and follow COVID appropriate behavior. By December, we are expecting 216 crore vaccines to come in. You can nod your head and say that's not possible, but I think it is possible. The government of India will take steps and it will come in. We already got 2 DG. 2 DGs on experimental basis. So one by one things are happening, sir. And I'm quite hopeful, I'm quite confident that wave 2 will get over, wave 3 will come, but we have learned our lessons and we will take corrective steps to tackle wave 3 also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gopal, for giving your views, but I will just add 2 things. First thing is about 2G. You are repeated this time. I have not mentioned last time. 2G has been researched only at Patanjali. There is no known research on the 2G by anyone in the world. So medical fraternity is not accepting that results unless it will not be proved. We should not be hopeful too much. If you want, you can do the Google search. You will find that this product is nothing from, it is from the Patanjali. DRDO's name has been given, and that now this Dr. Reddy's lab is manufacturing. That is a separate thing. But so we should not more hopeful for the 2G. That is the fact number one. Now, fact number two, which you are saying about the vaccine, there were chances when the Pfizer applied to us for the approval, we were not giving the approval. We were citing the laws that you must do the things, your trial in Indian on the Indian people. They have not done till now, but now we have approved because now we have no other choice. And now they says we are already booked. You know, you are sitting in USA, you can check up there. They already have the orders. So now to create, now the Moderna says that we will create one shot vaccine, which will take at least 6 or 8 months or even 2022. So to say, and one more thing I would like to inform, just to, for the knowledge sake for all of us, that this vaccine is effective for 8, 9 or 10 months, like influenza, like flu shots. Like in USA, everyone is taking flu shots every year. So it means those who have already been vaccinated in January, from January 16 onwards, they are due for again either for the year end or the first of the month next year. So it means we require 200 crores minimum vaccine. Although in USA, you know, now right now the vaccination has started from 12 years to 18 years also, as well as the trial is on from 3 years to 11 years. And most likely by the next month end, they are going to start that vaccination also. They have already opened the education. They have also passed the no masking thing, which they are doing. Many of the states are following. But that's why the economy in USA is booming right now. You can check up the India economy in India. If we see the case of UK. In UK, the government has supported all the industries, those who were asked to be closed, except the essential items which they are working, and they compensated to the workers, they compensate to the industries, and now they are opening. They have already opened many of the sectors, and that's why the economy will again come up. But here in India, unless we will not vaccinate, and they have vaccinated. In the USA and UK, if you see the number of vaccination, EU has not done because there was a fight between, again, for the vaccination, and that's why the EU is suffering. But UK and USA are the models. Even as you rightly said that we should have banned the international travel. See the case of Australia, New Zealand. See the case of Singapore. The way they have controlled, and that's why their economy has not gone down. I'm not talking of China right now, because people feel that China, if we talk, means that we are talking about the enemy country. Although now it is not an enemy country, because we are taking materials from the China also, as you know well. Anyway, thank you very much. Now my question goes to Mr. Kannan. Mr. Kannan, Mr. Mehta has mentioned about the 5 trillion Indian economy. My question to you is, our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, put a target of 5 trillion Indian economy by 2024. Do you think it is possible, keeping in the present situation? If not, then what is your opinion when we will be achieving this 5 trillion economy, or we will not achieve? Mr. Kannan.
Yeah, thank you. On this 2D, yesterday government said that it is not yet approved. So that is the latest on this 2D vaccine.
2G.
2G vaccine.
No, it's not a vaccine. It's a medicine.
Yeah, that medicine has not yet been. Now they are saying that it is not approved. So that is the government statement yesterday. And coming to this $5 trillion economy, we will certainly achieve. There is no doubt about that.
2024?
No, not 24. In fact, I had a very long, not talk. It was a panel discussion in Orissa last year. So we might, that time we said 27, 28, we might achieve. It appears that, already we have a big loss in the GDP. And this year we are supposed to grow at 11, 12%. Now everybody is downgrading it to 8, 9%. So if you ask me, it might take 4 or 5 years more. So what has happened at one point in time when this government took over, our potential economic growth was about 10%. Potential, we are growing at 8%. And like Mr. Lal mentioned, even before the COVID, previous 2 years, every quarter on quarter, we saw a dip in GDP. Well, what we thought, like I said, we made an economic assumption saying that demonetization, if you do, it is going to improve. Actually, the parallel economy was contributing to 1.5% of GDP. Suppose if you are reporting 6% of GDP in India, actually the GDP growth was 7.5 because the 1.5 was not captured. So the government thought by demonetizing, we will see that our GDP will be higher. That does not happen. Similarly, GST, government thought that once we introduce all that which was parallel transactions, they will come into the system. And again, they will reflect in GDP, which will be higher by 1.5% and taxes will go up. So these are all assumptions. You follow any strategy you prepare, you make an assumption. So they made those assumptions and somehow both didn't work out, but actually it worked the opposite direction. So it has pulled down the GDP because as you are all aware, 40% of Indian economy is cash based. You go to media industry, you go to agriculture, you go to real estate. Yeah. So most of them are cash based. And now why people are also not spending money today, government has introduced a statement called 26AS for your income tax return. That whenever you spend money above certain limit, all that will be reflected in the statement. So you cannot escape paying tax. So even if somebody who is not paying tax today, suppose if those expenses come, then if you PAN card, now PAN card is mandatory for transactions. So then it will get reflected. So they will not spend money. So that is one reason. So if you talk about economic growth, the economic growth is driven by consumption. So today, one good thing is that government people, they got to this 7th pay commission, 2.5 times increase in salaries. So they have good savings. So government should encourage them to spend. So if you look at the entire government sector, central government, state government, and the subnational government and panchayat and all these people, then at least 4 crore people who will be benefiting from this salary increase. And they will not lose jobs also. So this is a segment government should concentrate and ask them to spend more money.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kannan, paucity of the time. Now my question goes to Mr. Dharmendra Mehta. Mr. Mehta, are you there? Mr. DB Mehta?
Yeah, I am very much there.
Okay, Mr. Mehta, if you are in position of where Miss Nirmala Sitharaman is there today, if you will be the finance minister of India, your first priority will be the financial condition of the country or the health of medical health condition. And if you have to take action for improvement of both the things, what one action you should have taken? 1 minute only, please.
See, I would not mind to have a higher fiscal deficit even for the current year, which has been predicted at 6.5%. Stimulus package to the unorganized sector and as well as to look after the health sector. There is no point in maintaining 6.5% fiscal deficit and allow both health and the unorganized sector's health to suffer.
Okay, thank you very much. Same question goes to you, Professor Gopal. What action would you have taken if you are the finance minister of India?
The basic sectors. I agree with Mehta. Health is very important. MSME sectors, which is the backbone of employment, that should be given a big stimulus. And the third is the sector which I belong to, and that is education. Education should also be given a top priority. The NEP 2020 talks about 6% of the GDP to be allocated for education. But we are never crossing more than 2-3%, something like that. Yeah, that needs to be boosted because higher the level of education, better is the the health of the country. So these 3 sectors have to be given priority whether you like it or not. Health must take at least 6 to 7% of the GDP. Our today's problem is because we have not invested money in the health sector in the past. And all of a sudden you're saying invest money in health, which is not possible.
Okay, thank you. Although for the knowledge of the viewers, we have the governments are always from the very beginning. The estimated is about 1.7% in the health sector, and this year I think 2.3 in the education sector, while the NEP says 6%. Thank you, Professor Gopal. Now my same question goes to Mr. Kannan. If you had become the Prime Finance Minister, what you will take action so that the economy and the health both come on?
Yeah, both lives and livelihoods are very important. So it's a very difficult, and government has to certainly first focus on health, and they have to increase the budget for health. They said 38,500 crores. Maybe they should look at 75,000 crores. In terms of relief to various segments, government can look at additional 3 to 4 lakh crores as a relief, and they can create a budget, and they can even float bonds like COVID bonds for 3-4 lakh crores, and they can be used to support all these weak industries and weak segments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Mr. Kannan. So today, viewers, you have seen the COVID returns impact on Indian economy. Our expert panelist says that this time the impact is not that much, which was there the last time, but impact is there. And they says the impact is mainly on the MSMEs, unorganized sectors, small sectors, the street vendors, as well as small shopkeepers, and the job cuts. So how and when we are going to come out of this crisis, nobody knows. Predictions are there that this phase will be over very soon, and the next phase, we all pray that it should not come. But you cannot only depend on the prayers. You have to also see the reason, scientific reason also, what is the condition. But one thing is very clear, everybody agrees that the only way out to give boost to the economy is the vaccination, because only then we will be able to open our economy, open out everywhere. Until unless the states will not be opened, you will not be able to restore the economy and bring it on the track as it was pre-COVID time. And that is why it is very, very important. And today's program, thank you very much, all of you. Today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Newsgaon se Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you everyday new topic. But nowadays, for last 10, 11 days, we have started a second program in the evening. So that second program which we are doing in the evening is a Hindi. It's a half-an-hour program where we talk to the achievers who have achieved something in their life, and we talk to them and we find out their past, the present, and what are their messages to the young generation. The program name is Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goyal Ke Sang, which is taking place from 4:30 to 5 o'clock every day. And today's program, our chief guest is Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, President Indo-Gulf Management Association, Dubai, former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. So please tune in today at 4:30 p.m. for Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goyal Ke Sang. Thank you very much, Mr. D.B. Mehta. Thank you very much, Professor R. Gopal. And thank you very much, Mr. R. Kannan, for giving your views. And I'm sure our viewers today are quite enlightened and understood what is the COVID returns impact on Indian economy. Thank you all the viewers for watching our show.